That was strange. Okay, maybe we better put the blue bubble with the gold around the bubble, with the platinum around the bubble, with amethyst around the bubble, and this bubble is going to keep our recordings and our show here in absolute synced communication between us and the audience, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay. Now I feel better.
Good. We got Walt in a bubble.
We got Walt in a bubble.
Let's have the audience pray for us.
Say what? What did you just say?
Let's have the audience pray for us.
Oh, pray for us. Oh, okay. Well, all right. Anyway, the reason that I feel kind of spacey, I think, is because I've been playing with this new material that Walt made. It's very exciting because it is that powerful and energy, and it led to a whole I don't know why Walt does some things. He just all of a sudden says, well, I just did this, and my first question is why? And then I start to see the magic that's involved in it. And a while back he poured, instead of using the resin that we use for the magnets, he used rubber. He poured rubber. And it just was an amazing, different kind of energy, but it was rubber. So things that were, giving us a little bit of, let's say, hesitation with the bigger magnets. These are 30-pound magnets. If they're so strong that if they snap together, they can actually break the resin, which happened a couple of times to people. So Walt says, well, I'll make it in rubber, and then if it snaps together, it's just rubber, which was why he did it. But then when I got a hold of this rubber and I started playing with it, all of a sudden I realized that it was the answer to a problem for me, in that I know the power of reflexology, and reflexology works with the acupuncture system, but as it presents in the soles of the feet. Basically, every acupuncture, let's say, path ends up in the feet. And so there's a certain point in your soul where you can work on kidneys. There's another for your heart there, because the whole system is there. It's a very complicated and a very old system. But I've been impressed with what I know about it, which is not that much. So I knew that if we could get Shungite onto the soles of the feet somehow, that we would probably make a very big difference in the overall way that Shungite's working with the body. So we tried it with the stickers, and yes, it absolutely works, but the stickers were not durable. You put them in your shoes, and if you got cheap shoes like I do, you can't pull those inner soles out. And so they would wear down fairly rapidly. Well, if a kid would wear it out in a few days. So I've been looking for a way of being able to do this, have a Shungite right at the base of it, right on your soles. And as soon as I started playing with this stuff, I said, oh my gosh, this is the answer. It's this rubber stuff. Rubber with Shungite in it. Make it into to soles, to big soles. But then I realized you don't need a big sole for this stuff. It's so powerful. You just need a little square of it, So I had him send me the pour, and it was a thin pour, probably about 10 inches long, maybe 6 inches wide, very, very thin. And he sends it to me, and I take it out of the box, and I play with Shungite all the time. I live with Shungite all around me, and this stuff was impressive. And the first thing I did was stick it right on my chest. Because I'm having, Colleen, this respiratory problem that you've been having, I've got, Nora's got, Jan's got, and Jan found some kind of an article on how her symptoms are being called chemtrail flu. But then Stephanie read me something. I just got to see. Did she She didn't tell me. I told her, I said, send me this link. And she still hasn't sent it to me. But it was a discussion of how this particular exhibiting of symptoms is really, it's purging heavy energies. And some people are taking it into their bodies and sort of like purging stuff from their systems. So whereas it seems like a never-ending, gee, why don't I feel good? This was a very positive article explaining that if you're having these kind of physical ailments, it is an energy thing. And the doctors aren't going to be able to help you because they're not going to see anything. They're going to see the symptoms, but they're not going to see any reason for it because it's energy. And so I'm just passing that on that, don't get too freaked out about this because it, to me, it felt like it was an energy thing. I don't get normally exposed to stuff that's going to make me sick, and I'm a person that doesn't get sick. So, I felt it was energy, but this was a really reaffirming, and I'm sorry that she, somehow or another, I missed getting the link from her on that. But what happened was that while I was, kind of like going through my head, what am I feeling? What am I feeling here? I could feel my whole body, and as soon as I got this piece of Shungite rubber on my chest, I started feeling my entire energetic body just go whoosh, and it started to have this really kind of vibration that was not, it was kind of intense in that it seemed to have a lot of power behind it, but it was not making me edgy. It was not making me feel like, oh man, I'm just vibrating like, whoa. It was very soothing and very calm. And all of a sudden I realized that I could feel, I was very aware, let's say I was aware of my skeletal system, the bone system. And I haven't been to the chiropractor, and I know that my system's got to be out of balance. And I could feel the entire skeletal system sort of like, turning on, in lack of another way of explaining it, but it was an energetic turn on. And that made me realize that the energy that I was feeling felt like a cat's purr. When a cat's purring, they put out a particular frequency that has been proven to be very healing, particularly for bones. So I get Walt on the Skype, and we're talking about this, and I was asking him, why is it that the rubber seems to be working with the Shungite in a different way than the resin did? And Walt, can you explain that? Why different mediums are creating different versions of fields?
Yeah, I was explaining to Nancy that what I can offer in the way of scientific explanation, which is just basically common sense, is number one, we are aware that Shungite vibrates. We're not the first one to report it. We're not going to be the last ones either. The pieces of the Shungite, when they come close to each other, they resonate with each other, and they give off a different field as they would the individual piece by itself. So the other thing that we have to take into account when you're dealing with vibrations is the medium. What is the medium where something that is vibrating is contained? And I gave Nancy the example, for example, speed of light. The speed of light in a vacuum is different from the speed of light in water. That's a simple example. So when the Shungite is contained in the resin matrix, the resin is rigid. It has no flexibility whatsoever. That's why you can crack it. And when you have the Shungite in the rubber is flexible. And what do we use rubber for in cars? As something to absorb vibrations. So I gave another example I gave Nancy is, okay, if you strike a rigid surface as opposed to a flexible surface, if you take a solid object and you rap on the wall, you can hear that vibration will follow along the wall, and you can probably hear it from one side of the house to the other. Why? The walls are rigid, therefore the vibration, it carries that sound, that vibration, which, by the way, it's going to be high frequency because you're hitting something that's rigid. But if you were to hit a curtain or a shower curtain or something, you're not going to hear anything because it's being flexible, it's absorbing that vibration. So there will be vibration, your ears won't pick it up. So I said to Nancy, when the Shungite powder particles are contained in the resin matrix, because the resin is rigid, that vibration is going to be very high. But when it's contained in the rubber medium, because the rubber is flexible and it is absorbing a certain amount of vibration, the vibration that you will feel is going to be low frequency because a lot of it is being dampened by the rubber. So I guess that lowering of Shungite's basic natural high frequency is lowered enough that it can be perceived as a cat's purr. And we spoke with Nancy some hours ago, and I told her the experience that she did with the rubber patch, and I made another one. After I made that one for Nancy, I made another one because I did an experiment on my own regarding Shungite and magnets, and I gave my mother 2 square patches which she had on her shoes. So she tried when she's lying down on her left side, she sometimes gets a pain on the collarbone. So she took, like Colleen, she took a little nap. She put the little square patch of rubber on her chest, and when she got up off the sofa, she says, "Tell Nancy thank you very much for sharing that experience, because I didn't realize at first where it was coming from, but I felt it on my chest, a very soft vibration like the purring of the cat." And we do have cats, but none of them were lying anywhere near her. So I guess that's confirmation for you, Nancy. So I can imagine now having that on the feet, that vibration is now carrying through the whole body. Body adjustment, I guess.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling because when I first did it, it was like I was kind of out of body, but not so. Well, how did you put it? You had a way of explaining it. When I first put the stuff in my shoes, okay.
Airy feeling where you're not grounded?
It was like I was like floating inside my own body. It wasn't like I was outside of my body. It felt like I was floating inside my own body. So I don't know what exactly that means.
That floaty feeling, I guess.
Yeah, but that's
you're not flying high.
Yeah, right. So
I think it's this is just my observation. It could very well be you interpreting that vibration on another level, because remember, we don't use just the 5 accepted senses to perceive stuff. Other parts of our bodies perceive vibrations, and because you're perceiving from another part or another frequency of sense. It kind of throws us off because we're used to sound, we hear it in our ears, we're used to sight, we pick it up with our eyes, we're used to touch. But when we perceive things, vibrations, from in a different way, we kind of get confused because, what's this? I'm perceiving something, but I'm not hearing it, I'm not seeing it, I'm not touching it. And I think it was you. You were receiving this vibration, but you were trying to zero in on what is it that I'm picking up, or where is it coming from?
I don't even know where I put it. It's somewhere here, but it's not right in my reach. I'm going to get that, and I'm going to put it out and see what the cat does with it. Is the cat going to be attracted to it? Because, Colleen, as soon as I started working with this stuff, I remembered you talking about embroidering the cat bed. And I thought, oh my gosh, if you could put a pad of this in the cat bed, the cats may never leave it. It just opens up so many avenues of being able to, like, babies. You know, one of the things is how do you get shungite into a baby's environment? Well, you just make pads of this stuff. You know, strips in baby blankets. You wouldn't need much of this, apparently, because I don't have much in my shoes. And I'm definitely still aware of it. The soles still feel like they're tingly.
Mm.
We're going to have fun. We got to figure a way of getting this out to the people, because they will just love this stuff. And but the other thing that happened, and the reason I know that some of you people are going to be bored with this conversation, because it really is science. It really is science. But I have people very often who will give me a comment in the comment section on the cosmicreality.net concerning Orgone. They're making a connection, or they know about Orgone, and they want to know what's the connection with Orgone and Shungite, and you know what is all this. And to me, Walt, when you did this next thing, then I'm going to put some pictures up on chat so that Walt can talk to you about what you're seeing. And we're doing this again to record it, to get it out there into public domain. No secrets about Shungite. Let people know what it does so that nobody rips off anybody, because there are more and more sites out there where they've got these little patches of this magical thing that makes some kind of unknown wave, but what were they? Tesla's involved. They always use Tesla's name. And what's the other thing that they use, Walt? That it's
patented.
Oh, patent. Yeah,
mysterious mineral that does this thing with EMF. Very good.
And if it works anywhere, it's because of Shungite. You know, we're reading it and we're going like, yeah, right. It's from the mineral kingdom. It was like there were all sorts of telltale things. If it works, because we don't even know if it's Shungite. But if it's Shungite, they don't want to say it. Why? Because they got us out here talking about it. And the difference is they're charging what, $275 for one of these stickers compared to our $10.
Oh yeah. Before I forget, she must have told you already. Stephanie shared with me on something on chat that just in these past few days, she met with a person, and the person had that little slab of Shungite with adhesive that they sell at the Shungite store. It's like a little square of carved Shungite, and it has some adhesive, and people are supposed to stick it on their cell phones to protect them from the cell phone radiation. Stephanie asked this person for the phone, and she grabbed it, and immediately she felt how hot it was. So she says, I went and got a sticker for them. I put it on the phone, and in just a few minutes, the heat went away. So I said to her, well, there you have it. Pure Shungite. It's not going to cut it when it comes to the high frequency EMF. Here this person has an actual piece of Shungite stuck to the phone, and yet the phone was business as usual, getting hot. All the phones that have the stickers on don't get hot.
Right. The guy actually felt it when she put the sticker on the phone. He went, "Oh my!" And she said, "You felt that?" And he said, "Yes." And she said, "You're energy sensitive." So even just sticking the sticker on the phone, he felt the difference in the phone. So. The Shungite will do everything for electric, but when you get into Wi-Fi, you have to go to the S4. And the S4 is something that, well, you can only get S4 from us because that's what we make is S4. I don't know what they call their stuff if they make, because we've told everybody how to make it. We're not holding back on it. Use colloidal silver. However, it gets more complicated after that because we went through a lot of versions of the different powders that we have in order to get what we've got, and which is highly tested. And now, after 2.5 years of people using it, but also because of the thermography photographs that we've got. So just be careful. You know, if it costs a lot of money and they're talking about EMF, before you buy that, try us. We're money back guaranteed. If it doesn't work for us, you can go to them and spend more. Spending money that you don't need to spend just because somebody's not in the concept of, geez, what is it with a, hold on, I'm shutting the door by this. It sounds like I'm being in a bombing run here. And I've got the cat who is eating the headphone thing again. Cat, just sit there. Sit there. Good boy. Oh, don't move now. Don't move. I'm shutting the door. All right, here we go. Door shut. See, I can do two things. Okay. Yeah, it's, we're in it because it's a mission to us. And yes, we make money. I don't make any money, but that's because, you know, if I tell you I don't make any money, I have more credibility with you. And until they stop Social Security, if they ever thought of stopping it, if it was to stop, which it will not stop, I got no contract with stopping Social Security, I'm fine. So I don't need any more. So just keep it going into the company to keep it going. Because the fact that we're going is because Walt can make these weird things that nobody is quite sure why he tried it.
It's called boredom.
It's called what?
And a little bit of curiosity.
Yeah. Well, now I want you to tell what happened next, because what happened next, in my opinion, is a scientific breakthrough. And that's why I want you to explain it. I want you to explain it live. I want you to explain it now.
About the hammered shungite, because I think that plays a role.
Yeah, talk about the hammered shungite, because it does, in fact, play a role. Nobody anticipated it. And the reason that well, go ahead, tell the story.
I want to get across to the audience when we were having the conversation, we were like fishing for words, and we said, "Oh, shungite appears to be so organizable." It didn't quite satisfy me, and then I got a clue from watching a YouTube video. There's this bald-headed fellow on YouTube who's doing some interesting scientific videos, and he discusses magnetism and electricity and some of Tesla's discoveries. And on one of the videos that he did on light, he elaborated the concept of coherence. So he used light, an example. You know those little night lights that people put that have those tiny 5-watt light bulbs? And he says, if you look at a 5-watt light bulb, you don't do much. It gives this little bit of light that people use for night lights and little decorative things, or like salt lamps, because that's incoherent light. But if you were to take a 5-watt laser, where all the light is coherent, meaning that all those beams of light are actually synchronized and moving, being projected forward as one, he says a 5-watt laser will actually cut a hole in your skin. And that's the big difference between something that's incoherent, where energy is being radiated in every conceivable direction, and something coherent, where the energy is being organized and all the different elements are moving together. The reason I am making this distinction is because this is what we have perceived. There are people that make tumbled shungite, meaning that it has to be put into a tumbler drum, and they put abrasive on it, and the abrasive rubs the surface of the shungite and until it gets nice and shiny. But when Nancy has played with these pieces, it's like for some reason they don't give off the same energy that is felt from raw pieces. So I decided to go a different way, because I was looking for something completely different. You know, this is one of those serendipity things. You're looking for this and you end up discovering something different, but yet quite useful. By hammering, not abrading, not rubbing the shungite, but by hammering it in the drum, the shape of the nugget is preserved, but it becomes shiny and it looks like gunmetal gray. It doesn't look black anymore. But it seems that the fullerenes inside the nuggets, because of this rotating hammering action, begin to approach something close to coherence, because now it's like they're all facing the same way, or they're all vibrating to each other in such a way that the shungite gives off a very powerful and extensive energy field. So that the result of that is hammered shungite powder, which is what I used for the experiment with that rubber sheet that the one that Nancy has that hammered shungite powder, and then I did an experiment with magnets, because I had to make for a lady client. There was this lady client who had a session with a psychic, and it turns out her guides wanted her to develop this healing modality where she has to adjust the creative currents in a person's body. So there's no way that she could replicate the technology that they showed me in a shamanic journey. I said, well, if you have $2 million to play with, I guess you could start developing this, but this is too expensive. So another solution was to make a couple of wands and put a specific coil on it. And one of the ones is quartz, and one of the ones is shungite powder. And in the past, I've explained in the shows that when I douse the nuggets, metals have orgone polarity. A sheet of metal, you will have a positive on one face, negative on the other. If you have a wire of metal, you'll have positive on one end, negative on the other end. And when I doused shungite nuggets, they have orgone polarity. So this time, when I did the resin work on that shungite wand with shungite powder and resin, I purposely cured it on top of a very strong magnet, and the end result is that the entire wand had orgone polarity. One end of the wand was positive, the other end negative. So I thought, well, what would happen, with the rubber? So in the pictures there that's posted, you see both sides of an old metal tray. The gray part is the surface, the actual surface where the rubber sat, and then the other is the underside. And I purposely sent Nancy those two photos to show that there's no deformation or indentation of any kind. It's just a flat metal surface. I cleaned it before I poured the mix onto the tray. Using RTV rubber, I mixed the silver saturated powder with the regular powder, and then poured it into the tray, and then I put the tray on top of that very large, powerful magnet and allowed it to cure that way. So I don't know if you have the other pictures. What I noticed after it cured and hardened, letting the light shine off of the surface of the rubber, the surface of the rubber away from the metal developed the same diameter, the same shape, following the shape of the magnet. And when I doused it, it turns out, yes, the top surface of the rubber was positive orgone polarity. The bottom, the underside, was negative orgone polarity. And then more interesting was the underside, because there was never any powder on the tray when I poured the rubber mix, yet the shungite particles in the rubber mix arranged themselves following the outline of the magnet, both edges, the inner and the outer edge. And I purposely let the light shine off of the surface of the underside of the rubber so that Nancy could see that the particles it wasn't powder just sitting on the rubber surface, it was inside the rubber itself. So between the time that it was fluid, because it is a fluid, and the time that it cured, the particles arranged themselves following the outline of the magnet. Because as I explained to Nancy, for people that out there that have read about or studied the work of Dr. Mercola, and he suggests the use of magnets for healing purposes, he always cautions people to use the North Pole toward the part of the body that you want to treat. Try to avoid using the South Pole. And I thought about that. I'm wondering, why is he, making this recommendation? So I started dowsing different magnets, and it turns out if you look at the scientific explanations and technical papers on magnets, they all agree on the same point. Magnets have, of course, the fields are represented as lines of magnetism. And the lines actually flow. They flow from one pole to the other pole. And the flow is always the same. The magnetic line comes off of the South Pole and it enters the North Pole. So when you're looking at the North Pole, these are lines entering the body of the magnet. When you look at the South Pole, the lines are projecting out of the magnet. And this is the flow, the magnetic flow. But when I douse a magnet for Orgone polarity, it's the opposite. Even though magnetic lines are projecting out of the South Pole, that has negative Orgone polarity. And the North Pole, that has positive Orgone polarity. So I started asking questions using the chart, and I keep getting the same answer no matter how I articulate the question. Orgone flow and magnetic flow flow in opposite directions. So he's very correct in saying, yes, you should put the North Pole toward the body, that part of the body you want to treat, because that's putting out positive Orgone. You're feeding energy into the body. But if you put the South Pole toward the body, that's pulling energy out of the body. And that's why the recommendation on that. So in this particular case, it seems, because that was the North Pole that the tray was touching, it seems the hammered Shungite particles in the mix align themselves with the outline of the magnet in response to the Orgone flow that's coming out of the magnet. And
okay, can I just jump in here? Because my understanding is that you put the magnet on the bottom of the metal pan, right? The stuff wasn't flowing over the magnet. The magnet was on the bottom of the pan, so
just separated the magnet on the rubber material were separated by the tray.
And what we're seeing, because Shungite is not magnetic, it should not respond to a magnet. It shouldn't be like iron particles. Let's put it that way.
Nope. And some people could say, oh, but remember that Shungite has pyrite. Guess what? Pyrite is not magnetic either. You can grab a big chunk of pyrite, put it next to a magnet, you get no reaction.
Yeah, I know of nothing in it that is, would have been causing that except the Orgone. So my position here is that what you really have visually imprinted is a picture of an Orgone field.
Yeah, that's my interpretation.
Say again?
That is my interpretation as well.
Have you ever seen anybody able to absolutely demonstrate the Orgone field in visual effect?
Reich did. I don't have the money to get the parts to make it, but you can pick up from certain websites on the web the orgonoscope. It's like a telescope, but you have to get some components to put it together. It's like a telescope, but it's what it is. It's a long tube, it looks like a telescope, and at the end of the tube, you have an organic lens. He used cellulose. And what he did is on either side of the lens is the metal mesh, because metals conduct and repel orgone. So I've never seen it demonstrated. All I know is from the description of it is that if you look through the tube, because the metal is conducting and repelling orgone and the organic lens is attracting orgone, it makes the orgone fields around an object, let's say a plant. It makes them visual, almost like a luminous kind of feel. That's why in the book The Cosmic Pulse of Life, the author Trevor James Constable quotes, not all the missions to the moon were faked by Kubrick. No. There are actual films out there that are real films. And in 1970, what was it? 73 or 74, when we were living in New York, I remember we went to visit a lady friend of my mom's, and the television was on, so while the ladies were talking, I'm just a little kid, I'm just watching the television. I don't know if it was a documentary or a newscast, but they were showing the astronauts on the moon. I think it was that mission when they took that little moon car. The point is that in the scene that they're showing, she had a color TV, and in the scene where they're showing the astronaut, you see one astronaut moving from the left side of the screen toward the right of the screen, where there's another astronaut standing there, and you remember all those old recordings. They're not actually walking across the moon; they're like bounding very gently because of the low gravity, and you can't help noticing this as he bounds across the screen. There's this very light, luminous mist streaming away from the body of the astronaut, almost like iridescent, like the colors of the rainbow, following the outline of his body. So in his book, Constable explains that the reason you're seeing that is because, and that's a confirmation of Wilhelm Reich's discoveries. He was able to prove with his experiments that in a vacuum, orgone becomes luminous when exposed to EMF. And he duplicated that, and he showed it, and he documented that. So Constable is explaining in his book that, the astronaut is standing and the vacuum, the moon surface has no discernible atmosphere, so it's practically a vacuum. And the spacesuit is equipped with a radio, because the astronauts were in contact with NASA. So his aura, the orgone of the living aura of his living human body, is being made luminous by the interaction of the EMF with his body's energy field in this vacuum environment of the moon. So that was confirmation of Wilhelm Reich's work. So Wilhelm made this, this thing called the orgonograph, and that was one of the things that was never returned to him. When he visited, he did travel to, I forget, what was it that that university where Albert Stein worked in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia was one of those in the East Coast, where he lived and worked for one of the universities.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it. Begins with an N, maybe?
Princeton. Wasn't it Princeton?
Yeah, Princeton. It ends with an N.
I visited Einstein to show him his findings. Maybe he was looking for somebody of like mind, and had a orgone concentrator, and he took the orgonograph. And the story goes that Einstein wasn't very fascinated, but Einstein's government handler was very fascinated. And every time that Reich or his representatives tried to retrieve the equipment that he lent him, to play with, to try the test, he would get, deflected. So essentially the government kept those things, more hidden technology. And
they went on to tell the story about what happened to Reich himself.
He ended up dying in prison because he made a big mistake. He crossed swords with the secret government. That was his downfall, unfortunately. He was living, don't quote me on this, the book says where it is, I don't remember where it is. There's somewhere out west or Midwest. There's out in the countryside, there's a big compound, a ranch called Orgone. That property used to belong to him, and now it's like a museum where tourists can go and visit. And when he was out there, he was doing all these experiments with the upper atmosphere using his what he called the cloudbuster, and where he was able to extract from the atmosphere negative orgone. And when he would clear, when he did the experiments over the desert, he would clear the sky out of negative orgone, and in a matter of days, there would be grasses and other plants beginning to creep up out of the ground, and there was no rainfall. So he was able to confirm that the reason there was no life in these desert areas is because of what they were doing to the atmosphere, not because of lack of water. So if there's I've seen an old black and white photo. These cloudbusters were really quite impressive. They look like, remember in those anti-aircraft machine guns that you see on the decks of ships? That's how big these things looked. So they were quite imposing to look at, and it's just a tube connected to ground. And depending on how you set it up, you're either pulling orgone from the atmosphere or projecting orgone into the atmosphere. And but always doing experiments. One of the things he did is he was able to prove that orgone could neutralize radiation. He took a single gram of radium, he put it in an orgone concentrator, and on top of that, he put the orgone concentrator in an orgone concentrator cabinet, which is something that he designed where an entire person could sit inside, like those sauna cabinets. But this would allow you to, this would focus the orgone inside. So after however many days, when he took out the radium, all of a sudden the harmful radiation thing was practically undetectable, but the radium had actually changed its energy signature. It became something even more powerful than before. And this is where he made his big mistake. Around the time of all of his experiments, and after he saw Einstein, unfortunately, he got the attention of, the shadow government. And they noticed that many times during sunset, there would be like a star in the horizon, and it would move. And what it was, this was asked, one of the questions that Don Elkins asked in those Rasha sessions. They asked, what is it that Reich saw? And they told him it was one of the shadow government's UFOs. And he knew that he was being spied on, and he got so pissed that he did one more experiment. He took this transmuted radium, he put it inside one of the cloudbusters, set it to project, and he projected a beam of orgone onto the ship. The result was that the ship came down and crashed. And after that, they were on his case. If he breathed wrong, they were on his case, and the man died in prison. I don't know what they cooked up on the subject of charges, because he didn't commit any crime, but
he actually was brought up on charges from the FDA.
Oh.
Because he was making these basically little boxes that people would, if I remember correctly, that people would get in and have healing sessions.
Yeah.
And because he was talking healing, that's why Shungite does not heal. Shungite balances your energy body. It does not heal.
And you didn't hear anything here.
Entertainment purposes only.
This is entertainment purposes. Better than TV even.
Right.
We are not trying to start a riot.
Yeah, that was what the charges were. That because he wouldn't back down from the FDA, and he was put in prison, and within 5 months he was dead. But the thing that absolutely shocked me was that they went on an intense campaign to burn every single document ever produced by the man, including all of the devices that he had made. I can't remember how many tons of his literature that had been sold out there. It was all confiscated. So they worked very hard to shut him up. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons that I'm on live radio talking to you people and making Walt tell his story. We're telling everybody run with it. The more people that understand that this is all very, very real, because regardless of looking at pictures on the moon, regardless of something that you can look through and see, to my knowledge, this is the first time that you've ever seen basically a visual imprint of an orgone field on a piece of finite matter.
Correct. The only magnetic component is the tray, of course, because it was attracted to the magnet and the magnet itself. Nothing else was magnetic. There's no metal in the RTV. So there you have it.
Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to take that piece of rubber and I want you to go down to the bank and put it in a safe deposit box. and like let's see.
The professor made that rubber so that the basketball players were jumping all over the court.
I mean, to me, when I'm looking at this thing, I'm going like, no way he has done this, and it was just like, and then of course, then I got the stuff, because when I felt the pounded Shungite, the word that came to me was structured. And I said to you, it feels like all the molecules are aligned in the same, like on the same line. So coherent is the word.
Coherent is the word, when they're all lined up in a specific way. And it makes perfect sense, because why wouldn't the molecules arrange themselves? Solid matter is practically, it's 99% empty space. We see it as solid and we can touch it and our senses report that it's solid, but it's practically empty space. So if you were to go down into that scale and compare the size of an atom to the space between the atoms, it's analogous to the size of a solar system and the space between solar systems. So yeah, the molecules can arrange themselves. What's stopping them?
The question was asked, will this make the S4 and all of our other products more powerful? Yes, I said. I didn't hesitate saying yes because I felt it. It's not so. It's the field is more coherent. It gives you a feeling of stability, of just there's almost not a word to explain what it feels like. But yes, it makes everything better, because it's sort of like you got all of your guns trained in the same way, and it's just like whoosh, whoosh, instead of incoherent where it's all over the place. And
it makes it actually coincides with in another way. It supports what Jean told me, for those that know Jean Rockefeller, she's like a living human MRI, the way she can psychically see into things. And when I sent her do you remember you asked me to make a monolith and a pyramid for her. And when I made the monolith, for some reason, it was light. It was translucent. You could see light through it as opposed to being black and opaque. And she told me that was better. She says, because when there's less powder, it's actually stronger. So I guess if it's coherent enough, you really don't need a pound of powder to achieve a great effect. Like the old saying goes, less is more.
And that's another beautiful thing of what we're doing compared to other people, is that we keep going to less and less Shungite to get more and more effect. And we tell you, do not throw your Shungite away. It does not go bad.
Well, I just recently answered a question to one of my clients who was asking about the particulars of Shungite, and I said it's a bit unfortunate, but in Great Britain there are stone and mineral vendors that hold on to this strong belief that it has to be cleared, that it has to be recharged, and that is not so. And I said, case in point, if it needed to be cleared, if it needed to be recharged, the stickers wouldn't work. They would work for a few days and then you would get no effect. You can test a stickered phone that had a sticker on it a year ago and it's still working. The phone is still putting out positive energy as opposed to negative. That wouldn't be the case if the mineral became depleted and had to be, recharged and cleared and all of that stuff. I don't know.
It's accessing the quantum field. The quantum field fuels the sun. Why would you even consider trying to find something more powerful than the quantum field?
Remember in high school or college chemistry, the definition of a catalyst in a chemical process? The definition of a catalyst, the official definition is a substance such that it allows for the reaction between two substances that by themselves are neutral to each other. So when you introduce a catalyst into the mix, the catalyst allows these other two things to mix or interact and achieve some kind of effect or some kind of result. And yet at the end of the process, when you analyze the solution or whatever it was that you were doing, the catalyst is still there. It's still intact. This is the behavior of Shungite, at least to me. It does all that it does, but it doesn't get itself into the mix. It doesn't get involved in such a way that it gets altered. Because that's what happens with substances in chemical reactions. You start off with this and you end up with this. The substance gets altered. It doesn't get altered. It allows all these things to happen, but it doesn't get altered itself.